When I woke up in the hospital, my daughter-in-law had posted, "I wish this useless old hag would just die already." My world came crashing down when I read those words on my phone, the IV still dripping into my arm. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if for just a second, you feel like any of this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me keep unburdening my soul. My name is Carol Ann Miller. I'm 64 years old, and I live in Pasadena, California, in a little bungalow that smells of jasmine and memories that ache. That Tuesday morning, like every morning for the past 2 years, I got up at 5:30 to make breakfast for my son, Rob, and my daughter-in-law, Jen, who have been living in my house ever since they temporarily lost their apartment. My wrinkled hands were dicing tomatoes for the omelets when I felt the first wave of dizziness. The knife slipped, and a drop of blood fell onto the cutting board. "Oh, Lord," I murmured, wiping my finger on the apron my late mother embroidered for me 30 years ago, the same apron I wear every day to serve them, while I eat the leftovers standing up in the kitchen. Rob shuffled down the stairs as always, with that look of annoyance he'd perfected since turning 40. His wrinkled t-shirt and 3-day-old beard gave him the look of a perpetual teenager, even though he was a grown man who had never managed to hold a job for more than 6 months. "Is the coffee ready, Mom?" he grunted, not even making eye contact as he grabbed his favorite mug, the one that says, "World's Best Dad," which I gave him when my granddaughter, Sophia, was born 12 years ago. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, my hands trembling more each day as I poured the fresh coffee. "How did you sleep?" He didn't even answer. He sat in his usual spot, at the head of my table, and started scrolling through his phone while shoveling the eggs I had prepared with so much love into his mouth. The sound of his chewing grated on my nerves, but I swallowed my irritation, just as I had swallowed so many things these past few years. Jen appeared minutes later, wearing the pink satin robe I'd bought her at Macy's back when I still believed we could be like mother and daughter. Her acrylic nails made a sharp tapping sound against her iPhone screen as she walked barefoot across my kitchen, over my tiles that I had chosen so carefully when my Rick was still alive. "Carol, I'm out of the shampoo I use," she said without looking up from her phone. "It's the one in the purple bottle, the expensive one. And I also need you to pick up Sophia from school. I have a hair appointment." It wasn't a request. It was an order, as always. "Jen, honey, I just bought you 2 bottles of that shampoo yesterday," I said gently, drying my hands on my apron. "They're in the upstairs bathroom." "Those are mine," she replied curtly. "The ones that ran out are yours, the ones you use to wash our clothes and clean the bathrooms." A sharp pain pierced my chest. I use the cheapest dollar store shampoo because all my Social Security money went into maintaining this house, paying the bills, and buying the food that they devoured without a word of thanks. "All right, sweetie," I murmured. "As always. I'll pick some up this afternoon." Rob looked up for the first time all morning, but not at me. He looked at his wife. "Jen, did you tell my mom about the money for Sophia's school?" My heart stopped. "What money?" "What money, Rob?" I asked, feeling my legs start to give way. Jen sighed dramatically, as if I were the most annoying thing in the world. "Carol, Sophia's tuition is due tomorrow. It's $1,500. I already spoke to the principal and told her that her grandmother would take care of it as always. $1,500. My entire Social Security check for the month. The money I needed for my blood pressure medication, for food, for the gas and electric bills. But I don't have $1,500 available right now," I said, my voice breaking. "You know my check barely covers everything." "Mom," Rob interrupted me with that tone he used when he wanted to make me feel guilty. "Sophia is your granddaughter. Don't you want her to go to a good school? Would you rather she go to a public school where she'll get a terrible education?" "That's not it, son. It's just that—" "It's just nothing." Jen stood up from the table, leaving her plate full of the food I had lovingly prepared. "You always have excuses when it comes to your granddaughter. But when it's time to buy your expensive creams and your old lady pills, there's always money for that, right? My expensive creams. The $5 hand lotion from Target for my hands, cracked from washing their clothes, from cleaning their mess, from serving without receiving anything in return. I'll see what I can do," I whispered, feeling the world start to blur around me. "You're not going to see, Carol. You're going to get the money." Jen was already putting on her coat. "Because if Sophia can't go to school tomorrow, it's going to be your fault. And she will always remember that her grandmother didn't want to help her when she needed it most." They left without saying goodbye, without a "thanks for breakfast," without a "have a good day," without anything. I stood alone in my kitchen, looking at the dirty dishes they had left behind, breathing in the smell of cooling coffee and hardening eggs. My hands trembled as I scraped the leftovers they hadn't finished. The food I had paid for, I had prepared, I had served with love, and that they had scorned, into the trash. I sat down in my chair, at the edge of my table, in the spot where I always ate the scraps, and I began to cry. Not the loud, liberating cry I needed. It was the silent, bitter weeping of someone who knows they are utterly alone in the world. The kitchen clock read 8 in the morning. I had to go to the bank to withdraw $1,500 I didn't have, for a granddaughter who spoke to me less and less each day, for a son who treated me like a servant, for a daughter-in-law who hated me and didn't bother to hide it. As I walked to the bus stop, with my old shoes and my tote bag that had seen better days, I felt the first symptom, the dizziness that started at the back of my neck and spread to my forehead, the pressure in my chest that stole my breath, the cold sweat that soaked my blouse. "It's just stress," I told myself, like always. But when I got to Colorado Boulevard, when the California sun hit my face and the noise of the traffic became unbearable, I knew something was very, very wrong. The last thing I remember is sitting down on the curb, watching people walk past me, not caring that a little old lady was dying right there on the street, alone and abandoned, just as I had lived the last years of my life. I woke up in a hospital bed that smelled of disinfectant and other people's suffering. The fluorescent lights hurt my eyes, and the constant beeping of the machines reminded me that I was still alive, though for a moment I might have preferred not to be. A young nurse, her hair in a perfect ponytail and a smile that seemed genuine, came over to check the IV dripping slowly into my left arm. "Mrs. Miller, how are you feeling?" she asked, with a sweetness I've only seen in people who truly care about others. "You had a severe hypertensive crisis. Your pressure was up to 200 over 120. A little higher and—" She didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. A little higher, and I wouldn't be telling this story. "What time is it, honey?" I managed to whisper, my throat as dry as the Mojave Desert. "It's 3 in the afternoon, ma'am. You've been here since 10 this morning. Is there anyone we can call? Family? The young man who helped you on the street gave us your cell phone, but we didn't know who to contact." My cell phone, of course. With trembling hands, I reached for the phone on the bedside table. 5 missed calls, all from unknown numbers, probably telemarketers or scammers. Not one from my son, not one from my granddaughter, not one from my daughter-in-law. No one had bothered to see if I was still alive. "I'll call my son," I told the nurse, trying to hold on to what little dignity I had left. I dialed Rob's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up when he finally answered. "What is it now, Mom?" His voice was annoyed, as if I'd interrupted something very important. "I'm in a job interview." "Robbie, I'm in the hospital." My voice broke despite my efforts to keep it steady. "I collapsed on the street. The doctor said it was a really bad spike in my blood pressure." Silence. A silence so long I thought the call had dropped. "Hospital? Which hospital?" "Huntington, honey. In the emergency room. Could you come?" "I'm scared to be here alone." "Mom, I can't right now. I told you. I'm in a super important interview. Besides, if you're well enough to be talking on the phone, it means you're better, right? It was probably just a dizzy spell from not eating a good breakfast. You always exaggerate everything." Exaggerate. That word hurt more than all the needles they had stuck in me for tests. "Robbie, please. I just need someone to pick me up when they discharge me. I don't have money for an Uber and—" "Oh, Mom, don't be so dramatic. Ask a nurse for a loan or something. I can't right now. Jen will kill me if I lose this job because I have to run to the hospital every time you feel sick. Every time. As if I were a burden. As if being sick were my fault. As if for 64 years I hadn't taken care of him when he had a fever, when he broke his arm playing baseball, when he cried over girls who didn't like him back. "Okay, son. Take care," I managed to say before he hung up on me. I just lay there, phone in hand, looking at the screen which returned to my wallpaper. A photo of Sophia when she was 5, hugging me and smiling with her gappy baby teeth. "Grandma, you're my favorite person in the whole wide world," she had told me that day. Now she was 12 and didn't hug me anymore. She didn't tell me I was her favorite person. She didn't tell me anything. The nurse came back with a food tray that smelled like a hospital but tasted like heaven after so many hours without a bite. "Were you able to reach your family, Mrs. Miller?" "Yes, honey. They're coming later," I lied, because the truth was too humiliating to say out loud. While I tried to eat the watery soup and dry chicken, I decided to check my Facebook to distract myself. Mistake. Big mistake. The first thing I saw was a post from Jen from 2 hours ago. A picture of her and Rob eating tacos at a trendy spot in Old Town. They were both smiling for the camera with that fake happiness people put on for social media. The caption read, "Enjoying a nice lunch while the family drama queen is putting on one of her shows. It feels so peaceful without toxic people around. Drama-free life. Finally, peaceful. Drama queen. Show. Toxic." That's what they called me while I was hooked up to a machine, my blood pressure through the roof, completely alone in a hospital. But that wasn't all. The comments were worse. Her sister Karen had commented, "LOL, it's about time you guys figured it out. Some old people never learn that their time is up." Her friend, Diana, "Toxic's gonna toxic, better off without them." And the one that hurt the most, a comment from my own niece, the daughter of my brother who died 5 years ago. "Aunt Jen, my mom always said Aunt Carol was super manipulative. I'm glad you're not letting her walk all over you anymore." Manipulative. Me, who had raised that girl when my brother couldn't afford daycare. Me, who had paid for her school supplies for 3 years. Me, who had cried at her graduation as if she were my own daughter. I kept scrolling, like when you have a wound but can't stop touching it. Rob had shared Jen's post with his own comment. "My wife is right. Sometimes you have to set boundaries with family to protect your own peace. Boundaries are healthy growth. Boundaries with family. Protect his peace." From the son I had held in my arms when he had pneumonia. The son for whom I had sold my gold earrings. The only ones I had left from my mother, to pay his bail when he was arrested for a DUI 3 years ago. Tears started falling onto the phone screen, mixing with the blurry blue light. This wasn't the cry of physical pain. It was something much worse. It was the slow death of a mother's love, beaten and crushed until it turned to dust. The nurse returned and saw me crying. "Mrs. Miller, are you feeling unwell? Does something hurt?" "Everything, honey," I told her. "Everything hurts." But I wasn't talking about my body. I was talking about my soul, which was shattering into pieces so small I didn't know if I could ever put them back together. That night, after I was discharged and had paid for an Uber with the last $40 I had in my wallet, I got home. It was almost 11. The living room was a mess. Dirty plates on the coffee table, clothes thrown on the couch, shoes scattered everywhere. It smelled like takeout and beer. Rob and Jen were watching Netflix, cuddled up on my sofa as if it were the most natural thing in the world. When they saw me walk in, Jen didn't even pause the show. "You're back?" Rob asked without turning to look at me. "What did they say at the hospital?" "That my blood pressure is very high, that I need to take care of myself and avoid stress," I replied, hoping for even a shred of concern in his voice. "Oh well, we saved you some food in the fridge. There's leftover rice from yesterday. Yesterday's rice. Leftovers." That's what my son thought was enough for a mother who had just gotten out of the hospital. "Robbie," my voice started to tremble. I saw what Jen wrote on Facebook. Jen finally paused the show and looked at me with those cold eyes I knew so well. "And? You have a problem with me telling the truth?" "The truth? What truth, Jen?" "That you're an emotional manipulator, Carol. That you're always seeking attention. That every time you don't get what you want, you get sick or dramatic." "Jen, please." "No, Carol. Enough. Rob and I are sick of your theatrics. Is it a coincidence you fainted right after we asked you for Sophia's money? A coincidence you always get sick when we have plans or when we need something?" Rob nodded his head, like an obedient child supporting his mother. My wife's right, Mom. You've always been dramatic. I remember you exaggerating everything even when I was a little kid. In that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was silent, like the cracking of fine crystal. It was the final death of the hope I had clung to for 2 years. The hope that one day they would treat me like the mother and mother-in-law I deserved to be. The following days passed like a slow-motion movie, each hour dragging with the weight of the humiliation and contempt that had become my daily bread. I woke up that Wednesday morning with a pain in my chest that had nothing to do with blood pressure, but with something much deeper, the certainty that I was an obstacle in my own home. Rob had left early, supposedly for another job interview, though I knew he was going to his friend Chuck's house to play video games and drink beer starting at 10 in the morning. Jen was still in bed, scrolling through TikTok on her phone with the volume so loud I could hear it in the kitchen where I was preparing a breakfast no one would thank me for. Sophia ran down the stairs, her uniform from the private saint, Mary's Academy half on and that surly teenage expression she had perfected over the last few months. "Grandma, I need money for lunch," she said without even looking at me, holding out her hand as if I were an ATM. "Good morning, my love," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "How did you sleep?" "Just give me the money, Grandma. I'm going to be late." I looked in my coin purse for what I had left. $1. That was all I had until my Social Security check arrived next week. I gave it to her. "Here you go, sweetie, but tell me, how's school? Do you have a boyfriend?" Sophia took the money and rolled her eyes, a gesture that hurt so much because it reminded me exactly of her mother. "Grandma, please, don't be ridiculous. Old people don't understand anything about young people's lives." Old people. Ridiculous. My own granddaughter, the girl I had held in my arms as a baby, whom I had comforted during nightmares, whom I had taken to the park every Sunday for years. "Sophia, I just want to talk to you, like we used to. I was a kid back then, Grandma. Now I understand things. I understand why Mom and Dad are always stressed. I understand why this house is always so tense." She left without saying goodbye, slamming the door and leaving me with a shattered heart. That afternoon, I decided to do something I hadn't done in months. Leave the house just for me. I took the bus downtown to All Saints Church, the place where I always found peace when the world was crashing down on me. I needed to be somewhere I could cry without being judged. I sat in one of the wooden pews I'd known since I was a child, the ones that have seen generations of Pasadenians pass by with their sorrows and joys. The smell of incense and candles calmed me a little, as it always did. I closed my eyes and tried to remember when life was different. I remembered when Rob was 8 and got the measles. I stayed up for 3 nights straight, putting cool cloths on his forehead, feeding him teaspoon by teaspoon, singing him the lullabies my mother had sung to me. When he got better, he hugged me so tight I thought he'd break my ribs. "You're the best mom in the world," he'd said. "I love you more than anything." I remembered when he graduated from high school and cried because he didn't have money for college. I sold my wedding ring, the only tangible memory I had of my Rick, to pay for his first semester of an accounting degree he never finished. I remembered when he met Jen and introduced her to me as the love of my life. I welcomed her with open arms, cooked her favorite meal, gave them my blessing, even lent her my wedding dress because her family couldn't afford a new one. And I remembered when Sophia was born, when he asked me to stay at the hospital all night to help Jen with breastfeeding. "Mom, I don't know what we'd do without you," he had said. "You're an angel." At what point had that angel become the demon who stressed them out? At what point had my unconditional love become manipulation? At what point had my house become their house, and I, the unwanted guest? When I returned home at sunset, I found Jen in the kitchen, talking on the phone. I tried to slip past unnoticed, but I heard my name and froze behind the door. "No, sis, seriously. I can't stand this old woman anymore," Jen was saying in that voice she used when she thought no one was listening. "She thinks she owns the place just because it's her house. But you know what? It's not like she can kick us out, right?" Laughter from the other end of the line. "Yeah, exactly. Where would she go? She has no one else. Her brothers are dead. She has no friends, and Rob is her only son. She's more alone than a stray dog. That's why she clings to us so much. More laughter. Yesterday she got super dramatic because she saw my Facebook. Got mad because I told the truth about her little shows. But I already talked to Rob and he's on my side. He knows his mom is kind of toxic and manipulative. The phone slipped from my hands and hit the floor with a thud. Jen went silent. "I'll call you back, sis." She came out of the kitchen and found me standing there, my face soaked with tears. I no longer felt falling. "How much did you hear, Carol?" "Everything," I managed to whisper. "I heard everything." "Well, good. Now you know where you stand. Now you know that Rob and I are not going to tolerate your manipulations anymore. Jen, this is my house. Your house! Your house!" She screamed with a fury I had never seen in her. Always the same thing. "Yes, Carol, technically it's your house. But Rob is your only son. Do you understand what that means? It means if you kick us out, he's going with me. It means you'll be completely alone. It means you'll never see your granddaughter again." Her words were like precise stabs into each of my deepest fears. "It means you're going to die alone in this house. And after a month of no one hearing from you, they'll find your rotting body because you have no one else. Please, Jen." "No, Carol. No, please, anything. You decide. Either you continue being the submissive little grandmother who stays out of our way and gives us what we need when we need it, or you end up alone forever. What's it going to be?" Rob arrived at that moment, laughing at something on his phone. When he saw our faces, his expression changed. "What happened here?" "Your mother was eavesdropping on my phone call," Jen said in that perfected victim voice. "I just explained to her what her options are." Rob looked at me with disappointment, as if I were a naughty child who'd done something wrong. "Mom, really? Listening in on conversations? That's really not okay." "Robbie, No, Mom. Jen is right. You've been acting very strange lately, very controlling. My wife can't even vent to her own sister without you spying on her." "Son, please, listen to me." "I don't want to listen to you, Mom. I want you to understand that Jen is my wife. She comes first, always. And if you can't respect that, then you're going to have to decide what you want." That night, I locked myself in my room, the smallest room in my own house, because I'd given them the master bedroom temporarily, and I cried until I had no tears left. I sat in front of the vanity mirror that had belonged to my mother and truly saw myself for the first time in months. I had deep, dark circles under my eyes, wrinkles I didn't remember having before. My hair was gray and lifeless. I looked like an 80-year-old woman, not 64. The stress had aged me a decade in 2 years. I took off the earrings Rob had given me last Mother's Day, the ones that said, "World's Best Mom." I put them in the little box where I kept my few pieces of jewelry and looked at them one last time. Tomorrow, I would sell them to get the money they demanded for Sophia. As always, like my whole life, I would sacrifice something of my own to give them what they needed. But for the first time in my life, as I prepared to sleep in that creaky bed, in that room that smelled of dampness, a question formed in my mind like a dangerous whisper. What if I don't? What if, for the first time in my life, I just say no? The question I'd asked myself the night before echoed in my head all through the early morning. What if I just say no? But on Thursday morning, as always, my cowardice won out over my dignity. I got up at 5:30, sold my earrings at a pawn shop on Fair Oaks Avenue for $150, half of what they were worth, and went to the bank to withdraw the rest from my savings. The $1,500 for Sophia's tuition was ready, as always, like my whole life. When I got home with the money, Rob was eating the pancakes I had made before I left, calmly watching videos on his phone. He didn't ask how I got the money. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't say thank you. "Here you go," I said, placing the envelope with the cash next to his plate. "For Sophia's school." He took the envelope without even looking up from his phone. "Wow, you got that cash fast. See? I told you it's possible when you put your mind to it." When you put your mind to it. As if coming up with $1,500 was easy for someone living on a $1,200 a month Social Security check. Jen appeared minutes later, already dressed to go out, with the perfect makeup she did every day despite having no job or anything productive to do. "Did you give Rob the money?" she asked, pouring herself coffee into my favorite mug, the one that said, "World's Best Mom," which I had bought for myself last year. Yes, it's all taken care of. Perfect. Oh, by the way, tonight we're having a barbecue to celebrate Rob finally getting a job. My family and some friends are coming over. You need to buy the meat, buns, sodas, all that stuff. Plan for about 20 people. 20 people. A party in my house with my money to celebrate my son getting a job after 8 months of laziness. And I didn't even know he had a new job. Rob got a job? I asked, feeling a small spark of hope. Where? At a company owned by his friend Chuck. Something in sales. The point is, he'll be earning his own money now, and we can finally live more peacefully. More peacefully. As if I were the source of their financial instability when I was the one who had paid for the food, the electricity, the gas, and the water for 2 full years. Jen, I don't have money for a party for 20 people. After Sophia's tuition, I'm completely broke until next week. Oh, Carol, always the same story. Can't you borrow some? Don't you have credit cards? It's to celebrate your son. Aren't you happy he finally has a job? Of course I'm happy, but then no buts. Figure it out. The party starts at 7. They left without saying goodbye, as always, leaving me with the weight of solving another problem that wasn't mine but had somehow become my responsibility. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea, trying to figure out how I was going to get money to feed 20 people. I had no credit cards. I had nothing left to sell. I had no friends I could borrow from. It was then I remembered the shoebox in my closet, filled with important documents. I hadn't opened it in years, but I knew the deed to the house, my birth certificate, and Rick's life insurance papers had to be in there. Maybe I could get a loan against the house. It was a terrible idea, but I didn't know what else to do. I went up to my room and pulled the dusty box out from under a pile of blankets. I opened it carefully, breathing in that smell of old paper and stored memories. There was the deed to the house, my name clearly written as the sole owner. There was my marriage certificate with Rick, yellowed but legible. There were Rob's birth certificate, his first communion photos, his elementary school report cards. And there, at the bottom of the box, I found something I didn't remember saving, the original copy of Rick's will. I opened it with trembling hands, vaguely remembering the day we went to the lawyer's office, 5 years before he died. Rick had insisted we get everything in order, just in case, he'd said. I read the document once, twice, 3 times, unable to believe what I was seeing. Rick had left everything to me. The house, his savings, his pension, his tools, everything. But there was a special clause. It stated that if I died, Rob would inherit the house only if he could prove he had cared for me during my final years. If not, the house was to be sold, and the money donated to the Pasadena Senior Center. My husband, may he rest in peace, had been wiser than I remembered. He already knew 5 years ago that Rob had selfish tendencies. He already knew I needed protection, but that wasn't all. In a separate envelope, I found a letter in Rick's handwriting, addressed to me. My dearest Carol, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you, and our son is probably giving you trouble. I know Rob better than you think. I love him, but I know he's spoiled and doesn't appreciate sacrifice. That's why I put those conditions in the will. Don't let anyone take advantage of you, my love. That house is yours. That money is yours. You have the right to live in peace and dignity. If Rob doesn't treat you as you deserve, he has no right to anything. Be strong. I know you can be. I love you forever, Rick. Tears fell onto the paper like rain, but for the first time in months, they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of validation, of knowing that someone had loved me enough to protect me even after he was gone. I went downstairs with the will in my hand, a strange feeling in my chest. It was as if my Rick were right there with me, giving me the courage to do what I had to do. Rob and Jen arrived at 4 in the afternoon, loaded with shopping bags from an expensive department store. New clothes, new shoes, new perfume. All bought with money from the job he had supposedly just gotten. Did you buy everything for the party, Mom? Rob asked, dropping his bags in my living room. Sit down, I said, my voice one I didn't recognize as my own. We need to talk. Right now? Carol, we don't have time for your drama. The guests will be here in 3 hours, and we still have to decorate and get everything ready. I said, sit down, I repeated, and something in my tone made them obey. I placed the will on the living room table, spread out, clearly visible. "What's that?" Jen asked suspiciously. "It's my husband's will. The will that talks about this house and what will happen to it when I die." Rob turned pale. "Mom, why are you bringing this up now? That's not relevant." "It's very relevant, Rob, because according to this document, you only inherit this house if you can prove you took care of me in my final years. Otherwise, the house gets sold, and the money goes to a senior center." The silence that followed was so thick you could cut it with a knife. "So?" Jen said, trying to sound defiant but with a quiver in her voice. "Obviously, Rob has taken care of you. We live with you. We keep you company. You take care of me?" My voice started to rise. "You keep me company? Are you really going to sit there and tell me you take care of me? Mom, calm down." "I will not calm down, Rob. I'm done calming down. Do you want to know what taking care of someone is? Taking care is being there when that person is in the hospital. Taking care is asking how they feel. Taking care is not bad-mouthing them on social media. Taking care is not calling them toxic and manipulative." Jen jumped to her feet, furious. "Here you go with your tantrums. Always the same." "They're not tantrums," I yelled, and it was the first time in my life I had truly yelled. "It's exhaustion. I'm fed up. It's pain." Rob tried to calm me down, but there was no turning back. "For 2 years you have lived in my house, eaten my food, spent my money, used my things. And for 2 years, you have treated me like your servant. Like a nuisance, like a burden. Mom, that's not true." "Yes, it is true, Rob, and your father knew it. That's why he put those conditions in the will, because he knew you would end up hurting me." I walked to the window and saw the first guests arriving with 6-packs of beer and bags of chips. "Your party is canceled," I said with a calmness that surprised me. "You're going to go out there and tell everyone to leave, and tomorrow you two are leaving my house as well." The guests left one by one, some confused, some annoyed, most of them relieved not to be caught in the middle of a family drama. From the living room window, I watched them walk away down the street, carrying their 6-packs and bags of chips, muttering to each other about that crazy Mrs. Miller, who had canceled her own son's party. Rob paced the living room like a caged lion, running his hands through his hair with the desperation he always showed when things didn't go his way. "Mom, you can't be serious. You're kicking us out? Where do you expect us to go?" "Wherever you can think of, Rob. But you are leaving this house tomorrow." Jen stared at me with a hatred so pure I could almost touch it. "Carol, you are making the biggest mistake of your life. If you kick us out, you lose your son forever. You lose your granddaughter forever. You're going to end up all alone, like the bitter old woman you've always been deep down." Her words would have worked a week ago. A week ago, they would have had me begging for forgiveness and pleading for them to stay. But now, with Rick's will still in my hands and his letter burning against my chest like a talisman of courage, her threats sounded hollow. "Jen, for 2 years I have lived alone even with you here. Being lonely can't possibly be worse than being humiliated." "Mom, please." Rob approached me with the repentant child face he'd used since he was little to get his way. "Okay, I admit we've made mistakes. I admit we haven't treated you like you deserve, but we're family. Family forgives each other. Family—" "Don't you dare tell me what family is, Rob," I interrupted, my voice firmer than I felt inside. "Family doesn't shame you on social media. Family doesn't call you toxic and manipulative. Family doesn't use you as an ATM and then despise you. But Mom, we can change. I can talk to Jen. We can—" "You can what, Rob? You can pretend to respect me until I die and you inherit this house? You can treat me well only when it's convenient for you?" Sophia came down the stairs just then, her headphones on, and that bored teenage look she wore for everything. When she saw our faces and felt the tension in the room, she took off her headphones. "What's going on? Why isn't there a party?" "Your grandmother has lost her mind," Jen said bitterly. "She's kicking us out of the house." Sophia looked at me in surprise, as if seeing me for the first time in months. "Really, Grandma? You're kicking them out?" "Yes, my love. It's time." "But why?" For the first time in years, my granddaughter was giving me her full attention. For the first time in years, she was speaking to me without contempt or annoyance. Because I'm tired of being treated poorly in my own home, Sophia. Because I'm tired of being invisible. Because I'm tired of paying for everything and not even getting a thank you. But Grandma, you too, my love. You also treat me like I'm a nuisance. As if being old is my fault. As if loving and caring for you is something annoying. I saw her eyes fill with tears, and for a moment I thought that maybe, just maybe, she understood. I didn't know you felt that way, Grandma, because you never asked me how I felt. None of you ever ask me how I feel. Rob tried to approach me again. Mom, please, think about it. If we leave, who's going to take care of you when you get sick? Who's going to be here with you? You're 64 years old. You're not getting any younger. I'd rather take care of myself than be cared for the way you've been caring for me. But you don't know how to take care of yourself, Jen shouted, finally losing her composure. You don't even know how to use an ATM. You don't know how to order an Uber. You need Rob to take you to the doctor. You need me to help you with things around the house. You help me with things around the house? I laughed, a bitter laugh that came from deep within. Jen, I do your laundry. I cook your food. I clean up your mess. What exactly do you help me with? I keep you company. I give you a reason to live. Your company is contempt. Your company is treating me like a maid in my own house. Jen stood up abruptly, grabbed her purse, and headed for the stairs. I've had enough of this. Rob, let's go pack. If your mother wants to stay here alone with her damn cats, let her. But when she's dying alone in this old house and no one finds her until she starts to stink, she better not think of us. Jen! Rob shouted, but she was already up the stairs. Sophia just stood there, looking at me with an expression I couldn't interpret. Do you really want us to leave, Grandma? I want you to respect me, my love. And if you have to leave for that to happen, then yes, I want you to leave. What if we promise to respect you? Promises are words, Sophia. Actions are actions. And the actions of the past 2 years have been very clear. I didn't sleep at all that night. I heard them packing, arguing in hushed tones, going up and down the stairs with boxes and bags. Rob came down several times to try to convince me, growing more desperate each time. Mom, think about it. Seriously. Do you realize what you're doing? I realize perfectly. Do you realize that tomorrow you're going to wake up in this huge house, completely alone? I do. Do you realize you'll probably never see us again? That question stabbed me like a knife, but I kept my composure. If I never see you again because of this, Rob, then you never really saw me when you lived here. At 6 o'clock on Friday morning, I watched them load a friend's pickup truck with all their belongings. Sophia was the last one out. She approached me, her eyes swollen from crying. Grandma, I really didn't know you felt that way. Well, now you know, my love. Will you let me visit you? As long as you come with respect and love, this house is always yours. She gave me a quick hug, the first hug she'd given me in months, and got into the truck. Rob was the last. He stood in front of me with a mix of pain and anger on his face. I hope you're happy, Mom. I hope being alone makes you very happy. I hope you'll be happy too, son. And I hope one day you'll understand why I did this. They left without another word. I watched them drive away from the living room window, and when the truck disappeared around the corner, I sat down on my couch, in my living room, in my house. And for the first time in 2 years, I took a deep breath. The silence was different. It wasn't the heavy silence of being ignored. It was the clean silence of finally having peace. I walked through the whole house, from the basement to the upstairs bedroom, touching my things, seeing my spaces, reclaiming my territory. In the kitchen, I made a cup of tea and drank it sitting at the head of my table, in the spot that had been Rob's for 2 years. It tasted like freedom. That afternoon, for the first time in years, I didn't cook for anyone but myself. I made a ham sandwich, poured myself a glass of iced tea, and ate while watching a soap opera without anyone telling me to turn down the volume or change the channel. When the phone rang at 8 that night, I saw it was Rob. I let it ring. He called again at 8:30. I let it ring. At 9, he sent a text. Mom, answer. We need to talk. I replied, when you can speak to me with respect, we'll talk. In the meantime, I'm learning to be happy. He didn't call again all night. I got into my bed, in my room with my pillow that smelled like my perfume, and I slept for 8 hours straight. The first full night's sleep I'd had in 2 years. When I woke up on Saturday morning, the first thing I thought was, "Good morning, Carol. How are you today?" And I answered myself, "Good." For the first time in a long time, I woke up feeling good. The first 3 days of solitude were like learning to walk again. I'd wake up confused, expecting to hear footsteps on the stairs or the sound of the TV blaring. But there was only silence, and slowly, that silence started to sound like music. On Monday morning, while I was watering the garden plants that Rob had always called a nuisance that attracts bugs, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, I found my closest friend Brenda, Rob's godmother, with a familiar look of concern on her face. "Carol, honey, is it true what Rob told me? You kicked them out of the house?" Brenda was 68 and had been my friend since we were neighbors 30 years ago. She was the kind of person who speaks her mind, with good intentions, though sometimes her good intentions hurt more than others' bad ones. "Come in, Brenda. Want some coffee?" "Yes, but first tell me what happened." "Rob was so upset when he called. He said you got very aggressive, that you threatened him, that you screamed horrible things at Jen. We sat in the kitchen while I made coffee in the coffee maker that, for the first time in 2 years, I could use just how I liked it, without anyone telling me it was too strong or too weak. Did Rob tell you why I kicked them out?" "He said you got overly sensitive about some jokes they posted on Facebook, that you exaggerated everything as usual. He says Jen was just venting to her sister and you took it too personally." Jokes. Venting. As usual. "Brenda, do you think it's normal for a daughter-in-law to post on Facebook that she wishes her mother-in-law would just die?" My friend fell silent, stirring her coffee with more force than necessary. "Well, honey, young people these days are very direct. Maybe she didn't mean it maliciously. And do you think it's normal for my son not to come see me when I'm in the hospital?" "Carol, men are so clumsy with emotional things. Maybe he thought it wasn't that serious. And do you think it's normal for my granddaughter to demand money like I'm an ATM and then tell me that old people don't understand anything?" Brenda sighed deeply. I could see in her eyes that she knew I was right, but she had come with a specific mission. "Look, Carol, I'm not here to judge who's right. I'm here because Rob asked me to talk to you. He's very worried about you. He says you could get sick from the stress of being alone, that you could fall and have no one to help you. Did he tell you where they're living now?" "Well, with Jen's family, at her mother's house. And how are things there?" "Fine, I guess. I mean, it's family." "Brenda, if they're so fine at Jen's family's house, why do they want to come back here?" My friend had no answer, turning the mug in her hands as if searching for the right words. "Carol, look, I know you have your reasons, but I also know that family is the most important thing we have in this life. Rob is your only son. Sophia is your only granddaughter. Are you really going to lose them over your pride?" My pride. There was that word again. The one they used to minimize my pain. It's not pride, Brenda. It's dignity. And yes, I would rather lose them than continue to lose my dignity. Brenda left that afternoon without having convinced me, but not before telling me it was a shame I was so stubborn, and that older people sometimes don't understand the new generations. On Tuesday, more visitors appeared. First was Mrs. Gable from next door with the same speech. "Carol, dear, family is sacred. You can't just break ties over silly fights." Then came Father Michael, the priest from St. Andrew's Parish, with his paternal smile and hands always clasped as if in constant prayer. "My child, I heard what happened with Robert. I came to speak with you because I'm concerned you might be making impulsive decisions. Father, do you think 2 years of mistreatment is an impulsive decision?" "No, my child. But forgiveness should be immediate. The family is the core of our Christian society. Children sometimes make mistakes, but we as mothers have a duty to forgive and guide with love. And don't children have a duty to respect their parents?" "Of course. But as the mother, you have more wisdom and experience. It is you who must take the first step towards reconciliation. Always me. Always the mother's responsibility to forgive, to yield, to take the first step, to be the understanding one." Father Michael, With all due respect, I believe this time, the first step belongs to the ones who disrespected me. Wednesday was the worst day. Jen came alone, without Rob or Sophia, with a completely different attitude from the week before. She was dressed in black, her eyes swollen as if she'd been crying for days, clutching a tissue she used every 2 minutes to dab at tears I wasn't sure were real. "Carol, please, I need to talk to you," she said in a broken voice I'd never heard from her. "I need you to forgive me." I let her in but remained standing, not offering her anything to drink. "I'm listening, Jen." "Carol, I realize I made terrible mistakes. I realize I hurt you so much. I realize how unfair I was to you." Tears streamed down her cheeks, and her performance was so convincing that for a moment I almost believed her. "These past few days have been horrible, Carol. Rob is devastated. He hasn't been eating. He hasn't been sleeping. He cries when he thinks I'm not looking. Sophia cries every night asking for you. And I feel terrible for being the one who broke this family apart." "Jen, no, please let me finish. I know I said horrible things. I know I treated you badly. I know I didn't value you like you deserved. But Carol, I swear on my mother's life I've changed. I swear I understand now. I swear that if you give us one more chance, you will see a completely different Jen." "And what happened in these 5 days that made you change so radically?" "Being at my mom's house, being crammed into one little room, not having our own space, realizing how comfortable we were here and how badly we repaid you for that comfort." There it was, the truth. It wasn't remorse. It was inconvenience. "Jen, do you know the exact moment I decided you had to leave?" "When? When I heard you on the phone saying I was more alone than a stray dog. When you said I clung to you because I had no one else. When you said Rob was on your side and that he knew I was manipulative." Jen's face went white. "Carol, I was angry. I was frustrated. You were telling the truth of how you saw me, how you felt about me. And that truth set me free, Jen. It freed me from the illusion that you loved me. We do love you. Rob adores you. Sophia loves you. Then why didn't Rob come to the hospital when I collapsed? Why does Sophia speak to me like I'm a nuisance? Why did you post that you wished I would die? Because we're not perfect. Because we make mistakes. But that doesn't mean we don't love you. Jen, love isn't perfect, but respect is non-negotiable. And you all lost respect for me a long time ago." She left crying, shouting from the doorway that I was a bitter, resentful old woman, that I would regret this, that I didn't know how to appreciate it when someone came to humbly ask for forgiveness. Humbly. As if asking for forgiveness just so you could move back in for free was humility. That night, Rob called me, desperate. "Mom," Jen came home in tears. "She said you were so rude to her. She said you wouldn't even listen to her." "I listened to her, Rob." "Then why didn't you accept her apology? She came to you, humiliated. And you treated her like garbage." "Humiliated? Rob, do you really believe she came here to humiliate herself?" "Of course. She was crying. She practically begged you on her knees. Your wife came here because you're uncomfortable at her mother's house. She came because you realized you lived better here. She didn't come out of love, Rob. She came out of convenience." "You are a cruel woman, Mom, so cruel." "I'm a woman who is finally taking care of herself, son. You're going to regret this. When you're old and sick and have no one to take care of you, you're going to remember this moment." "Rob, I'm already old. I've already been sick. And when I needed you most, I had no one to take care of me. So I haven't lost anything I actually had." I hung up the phone and poured myself a glass of the wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. For the first time in my life, I decided that being alone in my own house, in peace, without drama, without yelling, without contempt, was a very special occasion. I raised my glass in a toast to myself, to Carol, to her dignity, to her new life. The wine tasted like victory. 2 weeks after Rob and his family left, I woke up on a Saturday morning with a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't pain or anguish. It was something I had completely forgotten. Excitement. A desire to do something. To go out. To live. I took a long shower, put on a navy blue dress I hadn't worn in years because Jen always said it made me look older, put on makeup for the first time in months, and left my house with a purpose I didn't even fully understand myself. I walked the streets of my neighborhood as if seeing them for the first time. I stopped at Mrs. Peterson's flower stand at the Saturday farmer's market and bought a bouquet of sunflowers. "Who are these for, Carol?" she asked curiously. "They're for me," I answered, and her smile was so genuine it became contagious. I went into Vroman's bookstore downtown, a place I had always wanted to visit but never had the time for. Always busy taking care of others. I spent 2 hours wandering the aisles, touching spines, reading back covers, breathing in that smell of new paper that took me back to my childhood when my dad would take me to the public library. I bought 3 books, one on vegetarian cooking, one on gardening, and a romance novel by a popular author I'd never read. The clerk, a young man about 25 with kind eyes and glasses, asked if they were a gift. "No," I said. "They're for me. I'm starting a new life." Afterward, I went to a cafe near City Hall and ordered a cappuccino and a slice of lemon meringue pie. I sat at a table by the window and watched people pass by. Young couples holding hands, families with children chasing pigeons, older women like me but accompanied by their husbands or children. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. I opened the gardening book and started reading about how to plant roses in pots. Rick had always wanted a rose garden, but we'd never had the time or money to do it. "When I retire," he'd always say, "when we have more time." But his life ran out before he had time for his roses. A tear fell onto the page, but it wasn't a tear of sadness. It was one of sweet melancholy, of memories that hurt, but also heal. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you all right?" I looked up to see a man about my age, with neatly combed gray hair, wearing a crisp white linen shirt, and with kind eyes behind thin-rimmed glasses. "Yes, I'm fine, thank you. Just remembering. May I sit here? It seems there are no other tables available and—" "Of course, please." He introduced himself as Arthur Jensen, a retired elementary school teacher, a widower for 3 years. He'd come to the cafe after visiting his wife at Mountain View Cemetery, as he did every Saturday. "And what are you reading?" he asked, pointing to my book. "I'm learning about gardening. I want to plant roses." What a coincidence. I have a garden full of roses. My hope adored them. And after she passed, taking care of them became my way of feeling close to her. We talked for 2 hours. He told me about his 3 children who lived on the East Coast and only visited for Christmas. I told him about Rob, but without the drama, without the pain, just as a fact. My son decided it was better for him to live away from me. "And how do you feel about that?" he asked with genuine curiosity. "Sad at first. Liberated afterward." Arthur smiled with understanding. "I felt the same way when my children left." "You think you're going to die of loneliness, but then you discover that loneliness can be very good company if you learn to love yourself first." That sentence stuck with me. Loneliness can be very good company if you learn to love yourself first. We said goodbye with a promise to meet again the following Saturday at the same cafe. It wasn't a date. It was simply the possibility of a new friendship. Something I hadn't had in years because my entire social life had revolved around Rob and his family. That week, I went to my doctor for all the checkups I had been putting off because there was no time or no money. My blood pressure had improved considerably. "Your stress is gone, Mrs. Miller," the doctor told me. "I can tell you're much more relaxed." I also went to the bank to organize my finances. For the first time in 2 years, my money was my own. I calculated that without having to support Rob, Jen, and Sophia, my Social Security check was more than enough to live with dignity, even with a few splurges. I opened a new savings account, one that only I knew about, and deposited the first $100. "It's my freedom fund," I told the teller, who smiled kindly without understanding. On Thursday of that week, as I was watering the garden plants Rob had so despised, I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, I found Sophia standing on the doorstep, in her school uniform, with a nervous expression I hadn't seen on her before. "Hi, Grandma." "Hello, my love. How are you?" "Good. Can I come in?" "Of course you can." We sat in the living room. On the sofas I could now arrange however I wanted, without anyone telling me they looked better on the other side. "Grandma, I came because I want to talk to you." "I'm listening, sweetie. Is it true you kicked us out because we didn't love you?" The question broke my heart. but not with sadness, with tenderness. My granddaughter, for the first time in years, was speaking to me with vulnerability, without the armor of a dismissive teenager she had built around herself. No, Sophia. I asked you to leave because I needed you to respect me. There's a very big difference between not loving someone and disrespecting them. But I do love you, Grandma. I really do. Then why did you treat me like I was an annoyance? Sophia was quiet for a moment, fiddling with the hem of her skirt like she did when she was little and nervous. Because Mom and Dad were always complaining about you. They always said you were too dramatic, that you were too demanding, that you didn't understand things about young people. And I thought I had to be on their side. And what do you think now? Now I think that Mom talks badly about you. But when she needs money for the electric bill, she suddenly remembers how wonderful you are. Now I think that Dad says he loves you, but he never does anything to show it. And how is it, living at your other grandmother's house? It's horrible. We all sleep in one room. My other grandma complains all day that we're a burden. Mom and Dad fight every night. And I miss this house. I miss my room. I miss talking to you in the afternoons. We used to talk in the afternoons, my love. Well, you would talk to me, and I would give you one-word answers. But I liked listening to you, even if I acted like I didn't care. I moved closer and hugged her like I hadn't in months. She smelled like kids' shampoo and recovered innocence. Sophia, you can come visit me whenever you want. This house will always be your house. But I need you to speak to me kindly, to treat me with affection, and to not see me as a burden. Can I come over every Thursday after school? You can come over whenever you feel like it, my love. But yes, Thursdays can be our special day. And can we bake cookies like we used to? We can bake cookies, we can talk, we can watch movies, we can do whatever you want. She left that afternoon with a smile I hadn't seen in years, after helping me plant the first rose bulbs in large pots I had bought especially for Rick's garden. Grandma, she said before she left, are you really not going to forgive Mom and Dad? It's not that I won't forgive them, my love. It's that forgiveness without change is meaningless. When they truly understand why I did what I did, when they genuinely want to change, not for convenience, but out of love, then we'll talk. And in the meantime, Grandma is going to learn to be happy on her own. And you're going to learn that family's love is earned with respect, not demanded as an obligation. That night, I made a special dinner for myself. A perfectly cooked steak, roasted asparagus, and a baked potato with all the fixings. I put on some James Taylor, lit candles, poured myself a glass of wine, and ate in my dining room as if I were the guest of honor in my own life. For the first time in decades, I felt whole. Not because I had everything, but because I finally knew I deserved every good thing I had. 6 months after that morning, I woke up in the hospital and found Jen's cruel words on Facebook. I wake up every day with a smile that comes from deep within. Today is Thursday, the day Sophia comes to visit, and I already have the ingredients out to make the oatmeal cookies she loves so much. My rose garden is blooming. Arthur was right when he told me that roses need time, patience, and a lot of love to produce their best flowers. Just like people, I think, as I cut 3 perfect buds to put in the vase on the kitchen counter. Arthur has become my weekend adventure partner. We go to see plays at the Pasadena Playhouse, visit the Norton Simon Museum, and walk the loop around the Rose Bowl. We're not dating, we're something better. We are 2 people who enjoy each other's company without desperately needing one another. Last Saturday, he taught me how to play chess in the park, and he beat me every time while I laughed my head off. Carol, he said that day, I love seeing you like this. Free. Free. A word that used to scare me now fills me with pride. Sophia arrives promptly at 4 in the afternoon like every Thursday. But today, she has company. Rob is standing behind her, with an expression I have never seen on his face before. Genuine humility. Hi, Mom, he says, his voice sounding different, softer, more real. Hello, Robert. Can I come in? I need to talk to you. I let them in, but I stay alert. In these 6 months, I've learned to trust my instincts, and my instincts tell me something has changed, but they also tell me to be cautious. We sit in the living room. Rob looks around as if he's seeing the house for the first time. The paintings I rehung where I wanted them. the plants blooming without criticism, the new books adorning the coffee table. Mom, I came because I've realized a lot of things. I'm listening. Jen and I are getting a divorce. The news doesn't surprise me as much as it should. Sophia looks down, fiddling with her hands. I'm sorry to hear that, Robert. How are you? Confused, hurt, but also relieved. Why relieved? Because these months living with Jen's family helped me see things I didn't want to see, like the way she talked about you when you weren't around, the way she manipulated me into treating you badly too, the way she had turned our marriage into a constant competition over who had more control. Rob runs his hands through his hair, the gesture he's made since he was a boy when he's nervous. Mom, one day I overheard Jen talking to her sister on the phone. She was telling her that her plan had always been to get you to leave us the house and then to convince me to put you in a nursing home so you wouldn't be a burden. The silence that follows is so heavy you could touch it. Sophia looks up at me, her eyes full of tears. Is that true, Robert? It's true, Mom. And the worst part is, I was starting to think it was a good idea. She had convinced me that you were a burden, that you were dramatic, that you were toxic. But it wasn't you. It was us. Robert. No, let me finish, please. I need to say this. These last 6 months have been horrible, but they've also been necessary. I realized I don't have a steady job because I've never really had to try. I've always had someone to solve my problems. First you, then Jen when it suited her. And what are you going to do now? Now, I'm going to learn to be a real man. I got a job at a furniture workshop. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. I get up at 5 in the morning, I work 8 hours, and I come home tired but with the satisfaction of having earned my own money. I'm very happy to hear that, son. Mom, I'm not here to ask if I can move back in. I know I don't deserve it, and honestly, I think we both need our space. I'm here to ask for your forgiveness. A real forgiveness, not like the ones I used to give just to get what I needed. He gets up from his seat and kneels in front of me. My 40-year-old son, kneeling in my living room with real tears streaming down his face. Forgive me, Mom. Forgive me for treating you like a housekeeper. Forgive me for letting my wife disrespect you. Forgive me for not coming to the hospital when you needed me. Forgive me for making you feel like a burden when you were the one who carried me for 40 years. The tears are streaming down my face too, but they are tears of healing, of scars closing over wounds I thought would never fade. Robert, I ask for your forgiveness too. For what, Mom? For spoiling you so much that you grew up believing the world owed you everything without you giving anything in return. For not teaching you the value of things. For giving you so much that you never learned to appreciate what you had. We hug for the first time in years. A real hug, not rushed, not awkward, with no expectations beyond feeling like a mother and son again. Can we start over, Mom? Can we build a different relationship? We can try, son, but with new rules, with mutual respect, without either of us trying to control the other. I accept any rules you want to set. The first rule is that there are no rules, only real love and genuine respect. Everything else, we'll build from there. Sophia comes over and hugs us both. Does this mean we're going to be a family again? It means we're going to learn how to be a real family for the first time, my love. That afternoon, the three of us bake cookies together. Rob tells me about his job, his plans to rent a small apartment of his own, his divorce proceedings, which he's handling with dignity and without resentment. Sophia tells me about school, about her friends, about her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. But the most important thing is that we talk. We really talk. No phones, no TV, no rush. Like a family getting to know each other for the first time. When they leave after dark, Rob says, Mom, I'm proud of you. I'm proud you had the courage to stand up for yourself. I'm proud that you taught me that real love sometimes requires firm boundaries. I'm alone in my house, but I don't feel lonely. I feel accompanied by the best company there is. My own recovered dignity. I go out to the garden to water the roses before it gets completely dark. The flowers are more beautiful than ever, and I realize it's no coincidence. Roses bloom best when they have space to grow, when they receive care without being smothered, when they are given what they need without being demanded to give more than they can, just like people. That night, before I go to sleep, I look at myself in the vanity mirror that belonged to my mother. The woman looking back at me is 64 years old, with gray hair, laugh lines, and eyes that shine with a light I thought was lost forever. "Good night, Carol," I say to myself. "Get some rest. You have a beautiful life waiting for you tomorrow." And I smile, because it's true. I learned that it's never too late to demand respect. I learned that love without dignity isn't love, it's dependency. I learned that being alone is better than being in bad company. But above all, I learned that when a woman decides to value herself, the whole world is forced to value her too. If you're listening to this story and any of it sounds familiar, I want to ask you, have you also allowed yourself to be treated as if you're worthless for fear of being alone? Answer me in the comments. Tell me your story. And if this story touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so this message can reach someone else who needs to hear it. Because we all deserve to be treated with dignity, especially by the people who claim to love us. We all deserve to bloom like roses, with space, with respect, and with the love we truly deserve.